George. This is my buddy George, and this is little Cosmo, and they both have a little bit of separation anxiety. In this video, we're going to go over some tips you can use if your dog does suffer from separation anxiety. Now, before we get into the tips and how we're going to treat it, let's talk a little bit about separation anxiety. It is a panic attack that the dog goes through when it is left alone, generally for lack of practice of being alone. Most of us, we get puppies, we let them sleep on our bed. They're always with us 24/7, and they're always with us. And then the first time we go to work, it's the first time in their life they're completely alone, and they go from 100% access to us to 0, which is unnerving. And so that's why it's important if you have a puppy to set up a long-term confinement area instead of using a kennel, because that way in a spare bedroom. So the puppy practices sleeping in there, eating in there, being there all alone on their own. And it's full of all sorts of great toys. They don't mind it because the puppies are very open-minded. Later in life, when we have an adult dog, they're just comfortable being alone because they practice doing it. It's nothing unusual for them. Most people don't realize when the first time you leave, it's the first time the puppy's entire life is completely left alone. Now, a lot of dogs that have separation anxiety actually recognize, well, actually, one other thing. Separation anxiety often manifests in dogs drooling, barking, soiling. A lot of times they'll chew things. A lot of people think, I'm just going to put the dog in a kennel. I've had a number of clients whose dogs have passed away because they put a dog in a kennel, the dog panicked, shoved its head through the door, and then got stuck and asphyxiated. So what we want to do is we want to help condition your dog so it feels comfortable and relaxed. And that means that it's calm while you're gone. Using a stronger kennel is not going to stop your dog's separation anxiety. It might stop your place from getting destroyed, but it also is potentially dangerous for your dog. Also, if your dog loses control of its bowels, it is not doing so intentionally. I have a lot of people that watch my videos and are like, nope, you got my dog, went on my dog on the bed, he was mad when I left and pooped on my bed to send me a message. Reality is the dog felt more comfortable, went to a place where it feels comfortable, which is where you sleep, where it can smell you, and it wasn't enough, and it lost control of their bowels. Any punishment will make it worse, so don't do it. Now, while you're doing this, you want to try to avoid leaving your dogs alone as much as possible because they're going to practice that unwanted behavior, the panicking, the drooling, and all the rest of that stuff. So if you can arrange temporarily while you're practicing the methods I'm about to go over, having somebody come to your house or sending your dog to dog daycare or go to a friend's house and hang out with them. Separation anxiety, some dogs can't be alone. Some dogs just can't be apart from their particular person or guardian. So in this case, George doesn't really have separation anxiety. Cosmo does. But when they're together, Cosmo's separation anxiety causes George to become anxious because Cosmo's pacing and whining, and probably a little bit more animated, I'm guessing, when George is around than when he's by himself. So what we're going to do is, I would recommend we practice with both the dogs, but both the dogs separately. Now, before we do this, before we get to the actual methods for doing it, we need to talk about the departure ritual. When we leave, there are things that we do that are associated with our departure. We pick up our keys, we grab our glasses, we put on our work uniform, I grab my purse, whatever it is, and then the dog sees us grab those series of things, and then we leave, and they know, oh, they're about to leave. So what I want you to do, first of all, is to identify all of the triggers that are associated. So if going like this causes your dogs to get excited, then you should go over, pick the keys up, put them down, and then watch TV. Put your shoes on in this chair like you normally do before you go to work, and then go sit down on the couch and read a novel. All the things that you're doing, if you wear a uniform to work, put that uniform on Saturday or Sunday. So what we're doing is we're breaking the connection with our departure ritual. And at first I do them separately. I just pick up the keys and I put it down. Then eventually I pick up the keys and grab my glasses and then put it back down. And so you want to kind of do these things throughout the day at different times of the day. Keep on practicing those and individually and then combined until eventually you can grab all your stuff and your dog's completely calm and comfortable with it. Now, exercise can also be a component. Exercise is not going to fix your separation anxiety problem, but it will make fixing it easier. So you want to make sure your dog is sufficiently stimulated in exercise. Having your dog practice lick mats or chewing objects or whatever it is, you need to have them start while you're home. If you only give the dog the lick mat when you leave, dogs with real separation anxiety, like our buddy Cosmo here, won't take a treat. He won't eat it. He'll leave it there, and when mom comes home, then he eats his treat. So we want to make sure that we're getting our dogs used to doing those things when they're calm and comfortable. Otherwise, we would poison them, and they won't ever use them. Okay, so a little bit of exercise that ends about 20 minutes before you're going to practice this stuff or leave is going to be beneficial. So the first thing that we want to do is desensitize. Step number 2 is something called the relaxation protocol. I'm not going to go through that in this video. I'm going to give the guardian a list of 15 days of these protocols that they're going to practice. I'm going to go over with them after this video because this is going to be a pretty long video to begin with. I want you to get through those series of protocols before you, At the same time you're doing the relaxation protocols, you're going to practice teaching your dog to stay. All right, so little Cosmo. Everybody. Yes. And I'm going to have, is his word stay?
Yes.
Okay, stay. Now, I'm going to grab these treats real quick and then come back to Cosmo's level. Now, when you teach your dog to stay means stay until you hear one unique release word. And then when it comes to teaching your dog to stay, you're going to do it for the 3 Ds. Duration, distance, and distraction. I used to start with duration. Now I go for distraction first because we can build the other 2 into the celebrate. Yes. Okay, so we need a stay command, which we're going to use the word stay. We also need a release word, which means that now we're done with the stay, you can walk away. The guardian is, who's filming right now, is the one who needs to make this decision. So what would you like your release word to be? Release, break, freedom, parole, holiday?
What do you think?
It should not be the word okay,
Right.
because that's a very commonly used word. So we want a unique word that we're not going to use a lot.
Freedom.
Free?
Free.
Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show little Cosmo here that I got a treat. I'm going to put him in a sit. Cosmo, you're supposed to be staying, sir. I'm going to give you one just for free, just so you know what it is. There you go. All right. So what we're going to do, George, I'm going to have you go over there. You're kind of blocking little Cosmo. Yes, you're going to get a whole bunch of treats. Stop. Sit. Stay. So what I want to do is I want to put my hand halfway between me and the dog when I say stay. So I'm going to have the treat in my hand here, and Cosmo here is very excited for the end of his treats. He loves food. So I say stay, pull my hand to my breast, and then I move my elbow up to have a distraction. Then I say bien, which is his mark word, and then I deliver the treat. So now I'm going to say stay, bien, and then he gets a treat. So by adding one elbow, that was 1 second. Now 1, 2. Now I'm at 2 seconds. So see how we're building in time with it. Now then I might say stay, and it's halfway distance. Don't go like right up to the dog's face. Stay. Bien. So it doesn't have to always be the same steps that you're doing each time. The idea is it's a distraction. Try to avoid moving your hands, because your hands, the dog's going to look for your for treats. So I usually like to use my elbows, move my head. You can raise your eyebrows if you're like The Rock, or whatever it is, and gradually we're going to get more and more of these. And we're going to work up to the point where we're close to about 30 seconds to a minute before we actually start moving away. Now I'm not going to get up because I want to stay in the frame for him, but getting up would be one. So like maybe I'd say, that would be another distraction. So I'd say stay, bien.
Can you actually get up to see if he'll do it?
I'd
I'd like to see how you practice.
Sure. Now the problem with when I get up is the dog's often going to get out of a sit. This would be too much criteria that I would normally not want to do. Bien. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we call an auto release. And the one thing that we do, if we get too greedy like I just did there, I asked for more criteria that he wasn't ready for, and he got up, and that kind of invalidates it. And it can create frustration if we do it a lot. There we go. Bien. Give you a little one for that. So when we're doing this stay, we're going to do, and it's going to change. Usually I tell people for training, you want to keep it less than 3 minutes and always end on a positive one. But in this one, we're eventually going to get up to like having the dog stay for close to an hour. Now we're going to get there very slowly. We have to go at the dog's pace, not at our pace. So when we're for standing up, for example, I would say stay, and then I would lift my and I hold this for a couple of seconds, and bien, and then give him the treat. And eventually I would do that, and maybe I would go like this, and then start bringing my foot up. So you're going to break down all the individual steps of you standing. And if your dog gets up, that means we just need to back up to a previous level of success, practice that one a couple times, then try them. Now eventually, at first, we're just trying this with him, so he doesn't quite know this, but after a while, the dog kind of figures out what we're doing. They're content to stay. Now stay is a very difficult cue for dogs because it's one of the few things where we don't ask them to do anything. We're asking them to stay, but that's not doing anything. Everything else is give me the ball, roll over, play dead, wipe your feet, or whatever it is. So this is hard for a lot of dogs initially. So we want to get to the point where eventually I'm at least 30 seconds before I can start standing up. And then I can start doing the distractions by taking one step back, coming back, and say bien, and giving that dog the treat. Eventually, and I might practice that step, just one step back 3 or 4 times before I try to go to 2 steps back. When you start moving away, it gets harder and harder. But if you go with a good foundation, go slow and steady with good progress, always ending on a good, successful one, eventually you get further and further away. One of the harder stages is actually leaving eyesight. So when you are doing this, and what I'll do one like a 5-second one. So I would say stay. I'm breaking eye contact. Bien. And that was a little bit too much for him. So right there, that's an example where we go back. But basically, when you're doing it, make sure you're not staring at your dog the whole time, because then eventually when you go around the corner, you break eye contact and they get up and auto release. Now, when I get up and I actually leave, I'm going to get to the point where I can take about 10 or more steps away before I start disappearing from sight. And the first time I disappear from sight, let's say that this is the wall right here. I'm walking backwards and I would just duck out of the corner for half a second and then immediately come straight back to the dog, because that's really hard, and give him that treat. And eventually I get to the point where I can step out for a full second, and then 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but I'm standing just right around the corner. And a nice thing that's helpful for this exercise as well as for separation anxiety is to have a security camera, which I thought we had one over here, but oh, there's security cameras right there. So basically, if you can have a security camera, you can watch. That way you can watch your dog when you eventually are leaving your place and seeing you just pace around, or is it sitting there like you want. Now, putting your eyes stay is not something we're going to do when we actually leave our house. This is just to have the dog practice being alone. Eventually, we want to work up to the point where the dog can be in another room and you have it stay while you leave its sight, but it still can hear you. It doesn't hurt you leave the house. So now the dog is practicing being calm while it is somewhat apart from you. If I'm right now at 100% with my dog, and if I leave the house, I go to 0. So the dog's practicing staying there. That's maybe 15% further away. And we're gradually going to increase that duration until the dog is fully comfortable with us and it's just sitting there relaxing. You have a security camera in there. You can have a little monitor here watching your dog while you watch a movie or enjoy a meal. When you're doing this, don't always just go 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. When you get up to a minute, every once in a while, throw in a 5-second one. Throw in an easy one so that it's so the dog knows kind of what's going on. And then if you can, at the end of it, doing something your dog likes that's not super exciting can be helpful. Don't when you get done, go really crazy, because that kind of works against us. Also, when you're coming and going, I should have said this earlier, don't make a big deal when you come or go. When you leave, don't be like, Cosmo, are you going to be okay, buddy? I'm going to leave. Are you going to be okay while I'm gone? No, he's just walk out the door without any rigmarole. When you come in, if the dogs are excited, don't pet them, because then we're rewarding that excited behavior, and then they sit around all day waiting for us to come home. Dogs typically sleep a lot. So if you do this right, your dog should probably just be napping while you're gone and not pacing around waiting for you to get home.
Do you think that we should give them like any kind of like those rolling treats or anything to distract them when we leave?
When dogs have real separation anxiety, they won't, and you guys have found that you can give them treats, and well, George will, but Cosmo won't eat anything, right?
No, he will.
He will? Okay,
if he likes it enough.
Yeah,
and then...
oh, that's right. I guess you did tell me that. So yeah, if you have something your dog can have, that's a wonderful thing to do. Now, what I would want to do is I want your dog to have it, and then you leave, and then you come back before they finish it the first couple times.
Got it.
Otherwise, they start thinking like, oh, and you should also give them to them at times when you're not leaving, so that they don't associate the two things together. Now, when you actually, when you get to the point where you want to start leaving, and I wouldn't do this until I can have the dog stay in the other room for probably close to, every dog is different, so I don't want to put a time threshold on, but I usually tell people until you can have your dog stay in that room where it is relaxed in that room for 20 minutes. The maximum you would have to practice is up to 2 hours. Once a dog can do something for 2 hours, usually they almost never have to practice beyond that. I didn't give you your release word. All right, and I didn't go over that as well. So, Cosmo. Okay, we're gonna do that again. We're gonna put you over there. George, sit. Sit. You are the good all-American looking dog. Sit. Good. Stay. Cosmo. All right, now I forgot an important part of the stay. Sit. Sit. You probably need a little bit of work on your stay, buddy. Sit. Sit. This makes the video a little bit longer. It needs to be, buddy. How about a sit? Okay, you're gonna have to just stay. Cosmo. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do 3 of them and I'll do the release. Sit, sit, or stretch. Cosmo, come here. So I'd say stay, bien, up, stay, bien, and when I were gonna release him, I'm gonna say, let him finish chewing. Get them on the wrong spot. Then I'm going to say free. Free. So you want to say free and then throw your treat at the conclusion. So if I do 5 or 6 stays, then I say free at the end of it. I don't say free at the end of each individual one. And that lets the dog know we're done with whatever the activity is. Now, eventually when you get to the point where you're starting ready to, let me go through the linear of this. So we're going to be teaching our dog to stay after we desensitize them. And I guess you can do those just not at the same exact time, but you can do them the same day. So eventually, we're going to desensitize our dog from that, and then we're going to be working on the relaxation protocol, which will take 15 or more days. While you're doing that, you can also teach your dog to stay. So you can do a little bit of this, desensitization, a little bit of stay, a little bit of the relaxation protocol. You don't want to get to the point where you're leaving your house until you've finished the relaxation protocol, which I'll go with you guys off camera. Now the last stage is, we're not putting our dog to stay. What we're going to do is we're just going to get up and walk out the door, lock the door, and then immediately unlock the door, come back inside, and sit down on the couch. So we like to do this where we can watch our dog through a security camera, so we can see what did our dog do. Did it run around the house and pant and drool, or did it just kind of look up and watch me leave, and then watch me come back in and lay its head back down? That's what we're looking for. We want the dog to be relaxed and calm when we leave. If it's panting, whining, drooling, it's out of balance, and it's communicating that, and then it's not, yes, let's not use those. So it's practicing the anxiety that we're trying to get it away from. So what we want to do is eventually you want to leave your house for 2 seconds, then 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. And when you leave, you're going to be tempted like, okay, I can sneak over to Maine or to Wilshire and I'll get a coffee real quick. Well, if it takes a little bit longer and your dog freaks out at the last 1 minute you're doing, that's what it practices, and that's the fresh release memory. So the ideal situation is just to sit immediately outside your door when you're doing departure. So your dog, if it does freak out, you can come back in. Now, we don't want to do that too much because then the dog freak out causes my human to come back. But the idea is, if we're at the coffee shop on Wilshire, it's going to take a long time for us to get back, and then our dog practices the behavior we don't want. So again, you're leaving. And eventually you're leaving for longer periods of time, but make sure when you're outside you're not laughing or you're not talking so the dog doesn't know you're outside. And some people will actually walk down the steps or whatever. You can step a little bit further away so the dog doesn't know that you're present. But the idea is practicing being alone, and then you come back in. And when you come back in, no petting the dog, no making a big deal out of it. Just come in and sit back down like there was nothing that was going on. Because that's what we want the dog to do, is just be completely relaxed. Now it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks of practicing this, depending on how much you practice. I've had clients that only practice every other day. It takes a lot longer. So I'd like you to practice as often you can with your dogs, but the quality of the practice is the most important thing. So if you practice with Cosmo and he can only do it twice a day with good quality practice, then just do it twice a day. If you try to squeeze that third one in and he's frustrated or whining, you're practicing anxiety, which is not what we want to do. All right, this is my buddy George. Thank you, buddy. And this is my high energy dog Cosmo. And these are some tips that you can use if you have dogs that suffer from separation anxiety.